Hello and welcome to the Red Leaf Card, your home for Canadian soccer news and views. My name is Jacob, and today we're gonna put our 2026 Canadian Premier League season predictions. But first, here's your fixtures rundown. As Canada was versing Tunisia at BMO Field, final score became a draw with no goals. Also, Canada did also have another match at BMO Field, but it was against Iceland. Final score was a draw with 2 goals apiece. So, on to the Canadian Premier League closing in of their season. What is our prediction of the 2026 season going to be like? So, of the 8 teams right now, well, big news from the Canadian Premier League. We've seen that from last season that 5 teams would go to the playoffs, but now announced that they will go back to 4 teams advancing to the playoffs, which the first round would be a 2-legged match, and the finals would be a single match to decide who will win the North Star Cup. But as the regular season comes to the way, but my reaction to this, that the Canadian Premier League going back to 4 teams to the playoffs, my opinion goes actually well. Now we see these 8 teams now are going to try their best to work really competitively. It's a real good competitive strategy for the other teams. You look at Inter Toronto FC, Atletico Ottawa, Forge FC, Calgary FC. Now they could just go back, try their best to make those seats in the playoffs. But again, you might think those top teams might think of saying could be an upset that they might not make the playoffs. Even Inter Toronto FC. You would think of Halifax Wanderers could actually make the playoffs. You might think of Pacific FC making the playoffs. Or maybe the first season debuts FC Supra de Quebec. So I am really looking forward for this season, that of the new structure for the playoffs, going back to 4 teams advancing to the playoffs of the 2026 season. So now our predictions for the 2026 season, starting with, again, Atletico Ottawa being the North Star Cup champs. I would have to think about Atletico Ottawa. They could be a team that will make the playoffs. Sometimes a lot of fans would think about them that they might be regular season champs, or could actually be the North Star Cup champs for the 2026 season. But maybe they might not even win the regular season or the North Star Cup for this 2026 season. Again, seeing how Atletico Ottawa performed in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, really, you might think of them saying, that's not Atletico Ottawa should have performed. That's not them. We might think of them saying that they will be the competitors. They will really compete really well in the Canadian Premier League. But we would have to wait until the season starts. Forge FC, as noticed, being the team that has scored a goal in the CONCACAF Champions Cup in penalty kick, might be a team you might think that could be the regular season champs. Maybe the competitive team that could actually win the North Star Cup. As known, some fans would think the team is dying down of their performance. Maybe so. My opinion, still, they might be the team that could actually win the regular season. A lot of people still would defend Forge FC of their performance from last season of the 2025 season. I still think Forge FC could be the regular season champs and maybe come back to try to win the North Star Cup. But there's another team that's trying to compete for that, and it's Calgary FC. They could actually try to win the regular season champs or the North Star Cup, which they failed against Atletico Ottawa to defend their title. I'm really hoping to see how they go for this one. So, again, a lot of fans, I would think they will be in the playoffs for the 2026 season alongside with Atletico Ottawa and Forge FC. But who's going to be that fourth team going into the playoffs? I would have to say this. Inter Toronto FC might be the team that a lot of fans could be thinking that's going to be a team could actually be the competitors to go all in for the North Star Cup, even for the regular season champs, and see how they go for the 2026 season. I seen, again, Mauro Stacchio is all in to try to win one of the titles for the 2026 season. And you look at the roster, Betty Banga, you have Atabelli, Ali Bassett, all these players, Raul Lopez, again, Juan Cordova coming back. You look at these roster for Inter Toronto FC, you'll be thinking, yes, this is a roster you must look that they are going to be the competitors for 2026. But another team is going for that exact same thing for Inter Toronto FC is the Halifax Wanderers. Vanni Sartini taking that position for the head coach and having Marco Carducci and many other players coming in. My opinion is to not sleep on the Halifax Wanderers. They could be the team that could make an upset to make the playoffs. And maybe Halifax Wanderers could be the finalists in the Canadian Premier League. Or might be the shocker to actually be the regular season champs. There's many other teams right now that could actually be the regular season champs, but we have to wait. But again, another team is in there on their debut season, FC Supra du Québec. I really am hoping to see how their first ever season in the Canadian Premier League goes. And they have my opinion, young talent. They have a young talent squad coming in, and really well. Again, having David Chouanier, Sean Rea, always something you look at them saying, this is a squad that is really good. And also former Atletico player Ferdinand and many other players. Sissoko, also former Atletico Ottawa player coming in, even former Valor FC players. I would have to think that FC Supra de Quebec will be a team that could actually make some upsets in the regular season, even trying to make one of the top teams, even losing their chance to even making the playoffs. So hoping to see that goes for FC Supra, but a lot of fans for their debut season might not make the chance to make the playoffs. But I would think Supra de Quebec will be close by 5th. But looking at BC, Vancouver FC, Pacific FC, looking at them, you'll be thinking they are not the contenders to make the playoffs. I would have to say my prediction for Pacific FC and Vancouver FC would probably be last on the table. But in my opinion, looking how Pacific FC's roster looks like, maybe could move up, or actually being last on the table. But if you look at Vancouver FC, I think there's some talent there. They could move to 7th, maybe 6th in the regular season, but we might not know to this. So my prediction that who will make the playoffs spots, I will say Forge FC will make the playoffs as usual. Calgary FC will make it also. I will say Atletico Ottawa will make the playoffs again. And I will say Inter Toronto FC will make the playoffs. So a lot of people will be thinking, who are the regular season champs? I would have to think maybe Forge FC might be the regular season champs again. Who I think will win the North Star Cup? I would have to say Forge FC. I think Forge FC is going to be I think they're going to be the regular season champs and going to be the North Star Cup champs. But who they're going to be versing, I think it's Atletico Ottawa, my opinion. It's going to be Forge and Atletico finals at this point. That's my actual prediction for the 2026 season of the Canadian Premier League. But again, we hope that the 2026 season will be a wild one, and seeing some of these 8 teams making some great upsets. And that's full time of the Red Leaf Card. You could follow us on X, Spotify, and YouTube. I'm your host, Jacob, subbing out.